Okay, let's respond to some comments here. So this particular user is responding to my first lien HELOC video. So this right here is still my most popular video on the first lien HELOC. Just basic explanation of how it works. And so he says, so you have to have a home with no mortgage to have a first lien HELOC? I don't know many that do. They have a mortgage payment and a HELOC. So I'm not sure if this is a second place option. So I responded, obviously, you do not have to have a home with no mortgage. You can replace your mortgage with a first lien HELOC, or you can buy a house with a first lien HELOC. So you do not have to have a paid off home to do the first lien HELOC. Sometimes I think there's confusion here with a first lien HELOC and velocity banking, right? Because if you have a paid off house and then you go to a standard bank and get a HELOC on that house, then technically that's a first lien HELOC because that HELOC is in first position. Okay. But when we're talking about first lien HELOC here, we're talking about a specific strategy where we are replacing your mortgage with a first lien HELOC and then running our cash flow through your first lien HELOC. So you end up with a much more efficient cash flow management tool, meaning you're running your cash flow through your home equity rather than through just a dumb checking account that doesn't give you any benefits. So your typical HELOC is in second position. You have your mortgage and then you have a HELOC on top of it. So again, with this comment, I'm assuming you didn't watch the video at all, because if you watch the video, obviously it shows very clearly we're talking about replacing your mortgage with a first lien HELOC, or maybe buying a house with a first lien HELOC. So just to clear up that confusion. By the way, this is unfortunately fairly typical. I want to encourage people to keep commenting. Even if you're negative, please keep commenting. But usually most people don't really listen. They watch and they pick out a couple of code words and then they respond. So almost always when I get responses to my videos that are negative, my initial reaction when I read the comment is, did you even watch the video? That's clearly not what I said. But so probably he watched a little bit of it or skimmed it, didn't really listen. Okay. And then this one here is a bit probably a bot. So I'll just skip that one. Okay, this is a good one right here from Mike Summer. Mike Summers, thank you for commenting. He made a couple of comments, and this is actually a really good one. So this is replying to the infinite banking concept, one of my infinite banking concept videos, talking about opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is the problem that we are solving with the infinite banking concept, and one of the things that makes the infinite banking concept so challenging to explain is that we're solving an invisible problem. We're solving a problem most people don't realize they have. It's because it's a problem they cannot see. So when you make a financial decision or when you spend money, the cost to you is not just the money that you spend, it's also whatever you could have earned on that money had you saved it. And what infinite banking allows us to do is to recover opportunity cost. So if you want to spend $10,000, you're still going to spend $10,000, but what you can recover is the ability to earn on that $10,000. It's like spending with a rewards earning credit card, where now you still spend the money, but you get 2% back. Except with specially designed whole life insurance, we don't just get an initial 2% discount or rebate, we get a compound return on that money, which continues from now until the day we die. But what he says is this: if I put money in a brokerage account and buy dividend paying stocks and borrow without margin and continue to contribute into the account rather than policy payments, am I using the infinite banking concept just with a different vehicle? Okay, Mike, great question. Great comment. So what you're doing is analogous, right? So you're paying money into an appreciating asset. In this case, it's dividend paying stocks. And then you're borrowing against those stocks, right? There is an analogy there because with infinite banking, we're doing something similar. We're paying premiums into an appreciating asset, the cash value of a whole life insurance policy. And then we're borrowing against that policy using a policy loan. So now our money keeps earning for us inside the policy, even while we're using it. So there is an analogy here. And I think an even better analogy also is real estate. Real estate investors do this all the time. They put money into a piece of real estate, right? And then they leverage that real estate later. So they borrow against that property. So they're still getting, let's say, rental income from that property. They're still benefiting from the capital appreciation in that property. They're still getting the tax benefits of that property, but now they're using the equity in that property somewhere else. So what's the difference? What's the difference? Well, the first thing I would say is that the infinite banking concept is more foundational. So when you're talking about infinite banking, you're talking about where are you storing your cash? Not investments, not real estate, not dividend paying stocks, but your cash. You're still going to have cash somewhere and you're still going to be banking somewhere. So whether you're investing in real estate or stocks, my question is, where are you keeping your cash savings? That's the question. Okay. And then there are two important distinctions here, two important differences between, let's say, paying money into stocks and borrowing against it versus paying premiums into whole life insurance policy and borrowing against it. Okay. The first question to ask is this: who has control? Who has control? When you borrow against your investments, you have to go to a third party, a bank, a lender of some kind. You have to go through a credit check, and the lender, will set the terms. The lender will set the terms. So you are not in control. Okay. So you are not becoming your own banker because you are not setting the terms of borrowing. When you borrow against your whole life policy using a policy loan, there's no bank involved. There's no credit check. There's no qualification at all. It's a contractually guaranteed right that you have, and you are in control of the repayment terms. So if I take out a $10,000 policy loan against my whole life insurance policy, there are no repayment terms on that loan whatsoever. I decide if, when, and how I want to pay that back. So I have now reclaimed the banking function for myself. Now, I'm not saying borrow against dividend paying stocks. It may or may not be a good thing to do, but it doesn't give you control. It doesn't enable you to become your own banker. Okay. And then here's the other key component. The other key difference is risk. Risk. If you put money into dividend paying stocks, there's no guarantee those stocks are going to go up. They could go down in value and they could go down precipitously. In this case, leverage is an amplifier, both to the upside and to the downside, right? So if you borrow against your stocks and then those stocks go down in value, you could get wiped out. When you read through the terms of borrowing against an investment, the bank pretty much always puts a get out of jail free card in there for themselves where they can liquidate you. You can, Mike Maloney, who's a big investor, invests in gold and silver, knows what he's doing big time, and he got liquidated. Okay, so this is a guy with a lot of money who knows exactly what he's doing. He was investing in what he knows, gold and silver, and using margin. And he kept it well within the confines of the terms of borrowing. But what happened was the value of the gold went down, and it wasn't precipitous, and it happened within a 24-hour period, and they didn't even give him a chance to make the account whole. They just liquidated him. That sort of a thing can happen when you're borrowing against stock. So when you're borrowing against a stock portfolio, you are putting your entire portfolio at risk, and there's no guarantee that the collateral will always be good. It could go down in value, right? Whereas when you're borrowing against whole life insurance, one of the reasons why there are no repayment terms and you have total control is the asset you're borrowing against is guaranteed to go up in value. There's no question as to what the asset is worth. Your cash value is set, right? You know what it's worth. Let's say $50,000, right? As opposed to a house where you don't really know what it's worth until you go to sell it. That's when you find out what it's really worth. Okay. You can estimate, but you don't really know what it's worth till you go to sell it. And so whole life insurance cash value is guaranteed to go up every single year. So there's no risk. There's no market risk. And then we could go into some more details about the terms that you get. So if you're borrowing against investments, you're not going to get 100% loan to value. If you have $100,000 of stocks, no bank is going to give you a $100,000 loan against that. That won't happen. They might give you $50,000, and that's going to depend on what stocks you have. If they're like blue chip stocks, then they might give you $50,000. If they're more speculative stocks, they might give you zero. They're going to set the terms. You're going to have a set repayment schedule. And if you don't meet that repayment schedule, there will be consequences. So the bank is in control, not you. Also, the interest rates tend to be higher. If you're borrowing against an investment account, the interest rates that you're going to be charged tend to be higher, substantially higher than what you would get on a policy loan. So if you're talking about borrowing against stocks, it really becomes more attractive if you're an ultra high net worth person. If you're an ultra high net worth person who knows what he's doing, that's where that sort of borrowing can be very advantageous, because that sort of person can get much better terms than an average person. But Mike, it's a great question. Thank you for your comment, because you are seeing that this is a broader concept, right? Mike, you are understanding that the infinite banking concept is not about whole life insurance per se. There's a broader concept involved here. And so I'm glad that you're seeing that. So yes, you can purchase appreciating assets and then borrow against those assets. You could do it with real estate. You could do it with stocks. You could do it with cryptocurrencies. You could do it with precious metals. There are various different assets you could do it. And that is analogous to what we're doing with the infinite banking concept. But it does not enable you to become your own banker. And there's risk involved. That's the key point. So if you really know what you're doing, then I would say there's nothing wrong with that. Real estate investors do it all the time. Just understand that's not enabling you to become your own banker. And all of those investors are still going to have some kind of a cash position somewhere. And the more you're investing, the more you're going to want a healthy cash position, emergency savings, and an opportunity fund. So I would say, why not take your cash position and move it into cash value life insurance, where you have now a savings account on steroids with all these other benefits rather than just cash? So then Mike commented again on the same video, or actually, no, a different video, but related. So I did a series of videos on opportunity cost. So he's pointing out that there's still a cost of borrowing. So in this video, I didn't go into it, but basically what he's pointing out is that when you borrow against a whole life policy, there is a cost of borrowing. That is correct, Mike. You're correct to point that out. It's just in this video, I'm just trying to explain that video anyway. I'm just trying to explain the basics. So I'm not going into all the details, but correct. When you borrow against a whole life policy, you are charged interest. This is one of the reasons why the insurance company offers you the policy loan, is because from the insurance company's perspective, the policy loan is actually an asset because they're charging you interest. Now, you still have total control in that you can accrue that interest indefinitely, because the death benefit will pay off the loan plus interest when you die. What we say is we typically will repay the loan on a schedule that makes the most sense for us, whatever that is. It could be never, it could be on some monthly payment schedule, but of course we have total control and flexibility the whole way. We can pause repayments anytime we want. But the key point to understand is that the interest that the insurance company is charging you, while it's a real cost, it is not an added cost. Okay. You pay interest no matter how you finance your purchases. If you take out a loan from a bank to buy something, obviously you're paying interest on that loan. If you take out a loan against your whole life insurance policy, there's interest charged on the loan. You don't have to pay it out of pocket, but still there is interest charged on the loan. If you pay cash, you are still paying interest because you gave up the interest you could have earned on that cash. Okay. No matter how you finance your purchases, you will pay interest. Okay. So it's important to understand that interest you're paying on a policy loan is a cost you have anyway. It's just you can't see it all the time when you pay cash. So it could be a good idea to pay cash rather than taking on debt. Okay. But a reason to pay cash is not, I want to avoid paying interest, because you're going to pay interest anyway. So if I pay cash, I'm paying interest because I gave up the interest I could have earned on that cash. If I take out a loan from a bank, I'm paying interest to the bank. If I take out a loan against my whole life insurance policy, I'm paying interest, but I'm still earning on that same principal balance. Okay. So what I'm earning in the policy is all gravy. I submit to you, you can effectively discount the interest rate on the policy loan to zero. As long as we're being charged the market rate, which we are, you can discount that to zero because you're paying it anyway. I would argue it's actually a good thing relative to paying cash, because now you turn an invisible cost, opportunity cost, into a visible cost, interest on the policy loan. And the biggest problems in our financial lives are the problems that we cannot see. Opportunity cost is the biggest one, or at least one of the biggest ones that we cannot see. An analogy would be, if you're a W-2 employee, you don't see taxes coming out of your paycheck. You don't feel the pain of paying taxes. And so you don't really think about taxes as much. But when you're a business owner, you actually pay those taxes. You feel the pain of paying taxes, which is good. So then you're much more highly motivated to say, hey, is there any way I can minimize this tax burden? And if you're a business owner, oftentimes there are ways that you can maximize your deductions and optimize your business so that you operate in the most tax efficient manner. Same thing here. When I pay cash, I'm paying interest. It's just I don't see it. And so I tend not to manage it very well because I don't see it. And then I don't understand why I'm not getting ahead in my financial life. When I borrow against my whole life policy, okay, I can see the interest of being charged. And so then I tend to manage it better. But Mike, thanks for your comments. Both of those comments are 100% correct, and they're great, very insightful comments. So thank you for your engagement, and please keep commenting. Ian Ragor says, this is talking about my whole life success stories, the video I did with Tyler Willie. I like the two examples, one simple, one more complex. Good introduction, I think. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate the comment. Thanks for your engagement. Okay, now we have a comment from this guy, MDA0214. He's commented quite a lot, and he seems to be opposed to the infinite banking concept and to whole life insurance. Mr. MDA, thank you for your comment. Really appreciate it. Please keep commenting. I'm always open to feedback, positive or negative. And in fact, I like getting engagement from alternate views, right? So here's what he says. And this is, again, you can see the videos here. This is a video I did, Build Your Cash Flow Machine, Whole Life plus First Lien HELOC. You can check out that video. But here's his response. Cash value is not paid out with a death benefit, so you're not cash flow positive. Playing the debt game will get you burned. It's nothing like having debt-free assets. Try it one time. It'll change your life and give you real control of your life. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. This is one of my pet peeves, but the grammar here is terrible. Sorry. I just have to point that out. It's grating to me to see bad English grammar. And unfortunately, I see a lot of it when it comes to comments on a YouTube channel. But a few things. Okay. First of all, let's just start with what's obviously wrong. Cash value is not paid out with a death benefit. That's what he says. Well, that is demonstrably false. Period. Cash value is paid out with a death benefit because cash value is part of the death benefit. It's like saying when you sell your house, they give you the value of your house, but they don't give you the equity in your house. What? Yes, they do. It's the same thing. The value of your house and the equity in your house, part and parcel of the same thing. So cash value is the net present value of that future death benefit. Okay, so when the death benefit is paid, cash value by definition is paid. So he says, so you're not cash flow positive. Well, it's interesting that he's saying that somehow the death benefit getting paid makes you not cash flow positive because the death benefit is always going to be way more than what you paid into the policy. So if he says cash, let's assume what he's saying is correct, which is not. It still doesn't follow that you're not cash flow positive. So in this particular example, you were paying in a $25,000 premium and you had a starting death benefit of more than $1 million. So if you pay in $25,000, let's just say you have $15,000 of cash value. So from a cash flow perspective, I would say you're not cash flow positive yet. But you have a more than $1 million death benefit. So why is that a bad thing? How are you not cash flow positive then because of the death benefit? I don't understand how that's negative. So if you pay that $25,000 in and then you drop dead tomorrow, your family gets $1 million. Last time I checked, $1 million is more than 25,000. So I think you are cash flow positive from that perspective. It's funny how he seems to think this is a negative, but maybe I'm not understanding what he's saying, which is possible because his English grammar is not so great. So it's hard to interpret what he's saying. And then he says, playing the debt game will get you burned. Well, again, did you watch the video? Where am I suggesting that you should play the debt game? I don't even know what you mean by the debt game, honestly. Real estate investors play the debt game all day long, and they make a ton of money doing it. So you can clearly get very wealthy playing the debt game. I'm not suggesting you should do that, though. I'm just talking about whole life insurance and a first lien HELOC. Now, in this video, we are not taking on any additional debt. All we're doing is refinancing debt that we already have, namely a mortgage, into a first lien HELOC to make it more efficient. And when we do that, we free up equity in the home. So we have access to that equity. Whether you want to use it or not is a separate question, but now you have access to that equity. And I would argue whether you want to use it or not. It's better to have access to the equity in your house than not have access. And what I'm pointing out in this video is that the loss of liquidity that you have in the early years of a whole life policy is more than made up for by the equity that you just freed up in your house. But no one's suggesting to play any kind of debt game. I'm just saying, as long as you have debt, as long as you have your house, you might as well make it into a more efficient debt tool. And then it's nothing like having debt-free assets. Try it one time, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, I know lots of people who are debt-free who are not financially free. Okay, being debt-free and being financially free are not the same. Okay, and again, the video is not about debt per se. So whether you want to have debt or not have debt, that's immaterial to this particular video. It's also immaterial to the infinite banking concept, quite frankly. But there are big time real estate investors who have a lot of debt and they do quite well. And then there are people who are debt free, who don't have a lot of money and are not financially free. So I don't see if there's any necessary connection between those two. Being financially free and being debt free are two completely different things. Now, if you want to be debt free and that's one of your goals, great, you can do that. You can do that. But being debt free by itself is not going to make you financially free. And I would argue that for the right person, using debt responsibly can actually accelerate your wealth building journey. But again, in this video, I'm not suggesting playing the debt game, whatever that means, or taking on debt or not taking on debt. That's totally up to you. So again, did you watch the video? Maybe. You must have skimmed through it. Okay. Corey Gumbel asks, who does first lien HELOCs on investment properties? So this is on this first lien HELOC, another different first lien HELOC video. So first lien HELOCs, typically we're talking about your primary residence, but you can do them on second properties and investment properties, depending on the lender. Some lenders will do them, some will not. I'm not going to answer specific questions like that publicly, but if you do have questions like that, you can schedule time with me. We can talk about it, but I'm not going to answer that in a public forum. Also because it probably changes. The requirements that lenders have do change over time. Okay, this is a comment on the V Capital account. So the V Capital account is something that is basically operationalizing the infinite banking concept. It's still a prototype, but basically what we're doing is automating the infinite banking concept, where instead of having a standard bank account, you'll have what's called the V Capital account, which is backed by your whole life insurance policy. And then all of your cash flow can go through this account, and all of your spending can be done through this account. So I think it's a great idea. I think we're still a ways away from actually implementing it. There are regulatory hurdles, other hurdles. And this guy, RJ, asks, what happens if V goes bankrupt like Synapse did? I'm not familiar with Synapse. This is the first time I've heard of it, so I have no idea what happened there. Will your money be accessible? People are still trying to get their money out 8 months later. With a bank, even in a situation like First Republic, funds were accessible the next business day. Having FDIC coverage made all the difference. I'm all for innovation, but the Synapse situation really gave me second thoughts. So thanks, RJ, for your comment. Appreciate it. Again, I defer to Jake and let Jake answer that question. So I'm not an expert on V, but I'll just say that FDIC insurance is only necessary because of fractional reserve banking. The reason why FDIC insurance is necessary is because the banks don't have your money. They've loaned it out. For every dollar you deposit into your bank account, the bank can loan out $10. So they can quite literally print money out of thin air. And when you deposit your money into your bank account, it's no longer your money. You just made an unsecured interest-free loan to the bank. It's the bank's money, not yours, and they take it and loan it out. So when you have a system like that, something like FDIC insurance becomes necessary because banks can now fail. As opposed to the V Capital account, which is backed by whole life insurance, right? Where your funds are yours and they are in your whole life insurance policy. So if V were to go bankrupt, it wouldn't impact you at all, is my understanding. Your money is actually yours, right? That's the difference. So, I don't know why people get warm and fuzzy feelings about FDIC insurance. For me, it always makes me suspicious. Like, wait a minute, why is insurance even necessary? Insurance is only necessary if there's the risk of loss. So why is FDIC insurance necessary? And why are you trusting a government program to make you whole? Do you think the government has your best interests at heart? So, you know, I mean, I understand where he's coming from in fairness to him, in fairness, but I would just say, as compared to what? As compared to what? And again, I'm not necessarily advocating for or against the V capital account. I think it's an interesting idea, but of course, it's still really a prototype at this point. It's not live yet. But my basic understanding is that because your capital is in a whole life insurance policy, it's your money. It doesn't belong to V. You're just collateralizing it. That's all. Okay. And then another question from Andrew Hansen on the V capital account. Would this take on 100% of income or a smaller direct deposit? Again, I'm not the expert here, so I'm answering for Jake. Jake Bass would be the one to answer, but I assume it could operate however you want. However much income you want to deposit is up to you, just like when you take out a whole life policy. How much in premium you want to pay is completely up to you. Then we have some more bots here. Paul White, if you're not a bot, I'd be happy to respond. But I think this is not something relevant to the video. Here's another bot. That's always fun. Aaron Jennings says, great job. Thanks. Thank you, Aaron. Greatly appreciate it. Always good to get positive comments. Thank you very much. Jesse Joseph says, good stuff. He's commenting on our first lien HELOC case study part 2, which is comparing a first lien HELOC to a cash out refi. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Jesse. We really appreciate it. Jesse, I believe, has a first lien HELOC, and he says, I asked him, how is your first lien HELOC coming along? He says, it's going great, just as I planned. And I think that's important because, again, I have clients, and I know plenty of clients who are doing very well with infinite banking, with whole life insurance, and with a first lien HELOC, right? So these strategies do work, and we have real, practical, concrete results of people who are succeeding with these. They actually do work, and we have real life results, nothing hypothetical about it. Okay, Christian Fuentes says, this was a really good explanation. Thank you. Thank you, Christian, for your comment. Really appreciate it. This was on that Build Your Cash Flow Machine, Whole Life plus First Lien HELOC video. Thank you for the kind words, Christian. Greatly appreciate it. Okay, Carl Yap says, I have an all-in-one whole life insurance and rental properties. Please produce more content on how to leverage these products to pay off the mortgages sooner and to increase cash flow. Thank you for your comment. I do plan to keep creating content on this, but I actually think the more basic content is actually more helpful to most people. I personally love getting into all these more advanced strategies about having a first lien HELOC, having rental properties, having large whole life insurance policies, and financing this real estate portfolio. And it's awesome, right? You see big numbers and lots of moving parts. But the problem is most people are not, that's not really where they are financially. So for most people, they just need the basics. And it also means people will self-select out of the process when they see that. They'll say, oh, well, I'm not a multi-million-dollar real estate investor, so I guess this isn't for me. But thank you for your comment, Carl Yap. I think I will produce more content on this, but I'll be cautious about it. If you want to talk specifically about your real estate portfolio, you can feel free to schedule a time with me. Thank you for your comment, Carl Yap. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I'll do some more of this in a subsequent video.